AronRa's long, boring speech discussed a strange phenomena that occurred during his deconversion that many others experienced along with myself. There seems to be a tendency to lean toward mysticism or magic or the occult when the realization comes that religion isn't real. It seems to be like a stopping point or a halfway house for a lot of recovering believers. I'm guessing the majority of this phenomenon is caused by the fact that we're taught to believe things without critical thinking and evidence. We are not taught how the scientific process works, so we doubt its claims. We also want there to be something more magical than this crappy existence seems to offer, because we've been told for so long that life is horrible compared to heaven, and we are still addicted to the idea of knowing secret knowledge and power that dedicated scientists are too blind, with their need for evidence, to see the truth. That was my reason for it, at least. If you had others, let me know what they are. Nykytyne, too, seemed to shudder at the idea of this happening to the world, as he seems to see it as occurring to replace religion and finds it vile because without a God to make them do good things, they seem ridiculously self-centered and follow a blind faith in whatever mystical fad they are in at the time, which can be very flexible morally depending on what the person feels like doing at the time. He raises some very good points, but I have a feeling this is going to have to be a necessary growing pain if we are going to become a skeptical species. These people, for the first time at least, tend to have more fear of the law and consequences than they do of their God, which is a major step. Materialism is a major problem, but they seem to have inherited that from the last generation of spend and borrow Christians. When it comes to giving charity, I am ashamed to say it, but I am horrible at giving to charity. I kind of destroyed my mental construct for being charitable because I was saving up for a big project that I thought was going to generate a lot of money for charity. That and the economy fell through, and I had to work to barely keep my nose above water. Now that I'm more settled, I and the rest of the skeptical community should probably try to figure a meme to construct along the lines of tithing, but doing it out of kindness and not out of guilt, so you give it to some religious order. The problem with humanity is that it was never given a handbook or any guidance when it emerged as a species. The human race is a sort of Lord of the Flies experiment, which only we, the later descendants, can look back at the data and learn from. I feel like religion was humanity's childhood, when it needed a parental figure to scare it into doing things. That parent tended to reflect the parents they had, which tended to be abusive and violent, but then the world was pretty violent back then. Prior to the rise of religion, there was animism, and prior to that, there was no religion. In my past studies, I read that archaeologists date the earliest evidence for the belief in a soul to about 200,000 years ago. Spirituality and animism, or ancestor worship, from that point on was a vague notion, and it was there as more of a consolation or imaginary friend to help out, or an imaginary bogeyman to scare you and your tribe from doing something dangerous. Then agriculture and trade was evolved, and people began going from xenophobic hunter-gatherer tribes to people who interacted with each other on a much larger scale than could have ever been imagined before. The steps to religion came from new communication, especially once writing took off. During that time period, where police, courts, and logic weren't in the numbers that they are today, religion was kind of needed to figure out ways to keep people from going rampant and doing harm to others. There are roughly the same number of neurons in an ant colony that there are in the human brain. However, unless they evolve telepathy, they will never be as smart as us. The speed in communication between all neurons is what causes our conscious emergence. The same is true about humanity in general. Until recently, we've all been very disconnected with slow communication between each other. Something the internets and cell phones have exploded in speed of transfer of information. When a baby is born, relatively all of its neurons are disconnected as a way to save space so that it can exit the birth canal with its giant brain. Only those linked to instinct are intact. As the baby gets older, the communications are built from experience and interactions from the environment around it. We humans have all these collective experiences, but for the longest time had no way to transmit these experiences clearly, quickly, and accurately the way we do now. The combined knowledge of individual experience could lead to a much better understanding of the world. Like ants, we are all going around collecting information and experience and feeding it into and raising the group consciousness. The queen is a combination of our own minds at this point and the internet. In some cases, the humans are the drones, and in some cases, the internet is the drone. From this interaction, new ideas and information can be generated from the knowledge gained from others quickly. Just like the formation of this video, one neuron may fire and set off a chain of other neurons firing as well. AronRa and Nykytyne's videos, thoughts, and experiences triggered my brain thinking about this topic, and I was able to discuss it based on my own experiences and knowledge I gained. Who knows, this video may trigger other thoughts in people's heads to create new videos and ideas. Now that humanity has increased its transference of information, the next stage of maturation and morality are likely to occur. Groups of people who would have never ever heard of each other are now able to find each other and coordinate for change, making this a better place.